Okay, good evening, and welcome to our viewers and all of those here. Welcome to the August 24th Sherwood School Board meeting. And to start off, we'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, we will move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine in nature and don't require additional input or discussion. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion, any changes to the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved. Moving right ahead, we will head on to our reports, and we will hear first from Dr. Superintendent Heather Cordy.
Thank you, Chair Hecker. Good evening, board members. First of all, I just want to say and just show my appreciation for the hours that we spent this afternoon together with our facilitator, Peg Portscheller. I'm just really thankful for the work that we did together and for the conversations that we had. In my superintendent report this evening, it's all about this really exciting time of year. And this is one of the busiest times of year, as you can imagine, as we gear up for the first day of school. And it certainly is one of the most exciting times of this school year and of the year. And so a couple things that we've been up to. It is a tradition in early August for administrators to host our year-long staff members. So our custodians, our maintenance team members, and technology and many others. And we bring the food, we have team members barbecuing, and we really honor them and thank them for their work all year long. They're working tirelessly behind the scenes to get the buildings and departments ready for that first day of school. And we want to make sure and thank them for that. So August 5th, we did that, and it was a great event. I also have the honor of being on the executive committee for the Women's Superintendent Group in the state of Oregon. And I have had the opportunity to be a part of multiple meetings over the course of the last few months and working to then lead and guide the larger Women's Superintendent Group in the state, which is a real honor and a huge passion of mine. August 10th through 12th, we had our Administrator Leadership Institute. We refer to that as ALI. That is, the third day is for instructional administrators, so our building principals, associate principals, and then our district level administrators that are directly involved in instruction. But the first 2 days were all of our administrators. We spend time during those 2 days. They're packed. The days are just really full, and they're full of professional development, some training, team building, things very similar to what we did this afternoon, just a little bit different takes on those. We always launch our book study for the year. So it was amazing to have the team back together, and we had not been able to have our Leadership Institute since 2019. And so we have so many new administrators that have joined the team since then. So it was really, really meaningful. It was a great event. And I think we accomplished a lot of work too. August 20th, so last Friday, we hosted the chamber breakfast, and that also is something that we do traditionally in August. It's the kickoff to the school year, and it's an opportunity for our chamber partners to come to one of our schools and be our guests. And so we host the breakfast, we give the presentation. Typically, that looks like me giving a state of the district. It was a little bit different this year. This year, we hosted at the high school, and Rotary also attended. So I think we had about 50 people in attendance, and then we had tours afterwards. And so we have received really positive feedback. And thank you, Directors Hecker and Adamson, for being there. We also, our teams, excuse me, have been working on creating an option, finding an option, an online option for our community. We have received a great deal of feedback of late related to families who are fearful and nervous about the Delta variant, and wanting to have an opportunity for their students to stay enrolled in the Sherwood School District, but have an online curriculum that they could access until or when or if they feel comfortable having their students come back in person. And so we are getting really close to having real clarity about that. The program is called Oregon Virtual Education. It's often referred to as ORVED. And our ESD, Northwest Regional Education Service District, hosts that. We would be contracting with them to do that. And so we're going to be sending out information to the community in probably the next day, where we're asking for more specific information by way of a survey to find out interest. And this will also be what we will use when families don't want their students to wear masks for in-person school. This will be the option that will be given to them in lieu of that. Last but certainly not least, we have about 40 new staff members, teachers and classified staff. It's a really high, exciting number. And today was the first day of the new staff academy. And it's a 3-day event. Human resources leads that. And departments are a part of that in really helping our newest staff members learn the technology of the district and learn more about the various bodies of work in the various departments. They get to also spend time with their mentors during the new staff academy, and they also get to spend time in their classrooms. So today was teachers in the new staff academy, and tomorrow our classified staff will be joining. So it's an exciting time. We're super excited about September 8th and getting students back. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, it's my understanding we do not have reports from the SEA, OSEA, or City Council this evening, which will move us on to public comment. So just a couple thoughts to share in regard to public comment. In accordance with board policy BDDH, the purpose of public comment is for members of our board of directors to hear public concerns, comments, and opinions. Board members will not respond to submitted public comment. Public comment has been submitted this evening electronically and will be read aloud by Ms. Andrade and Mr. Rose of the Sherwood School District. Individual public comment will be shared up to 3-minute time limit. And although any public comment that goes beyond the time limit will not be read aloud, it will be included in full as part of the public record. Speakers or electronic submissions may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs. However, the board will not hear comments regarding individual district staff or board members. Public comment without a name or a street address will not be read aloud, and comments with abusive language or threats to individuals will not be read aloud as part of the public comment. And I can say there are none, so that's just as an FYI. And it is also important to note that all comments are those of the individual submitting the public comment. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Rose and Ms. Andrade to share a public comment with the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first is from Dr. Stephen Remsen, Hanley Street. Since the board last met, the public health threat of the Delta variant of COVID-19 to our community and children has become undeniable. The board must take new actions to keep students, teachers, and staff safe and in school, particularly for our unvaccinated elementary school students. I ask the board to prioritize the following. As our neighboring districts have done, Sherwood needs an online distance option for quarantine children, cohorting at the classroom level, not at the grade level for elementary students. Parents should have the option for their children to be 6 feet from unmasked individuals, both indoors and outdoors at all times. Adding outdoor lunch options and mask-only playground sections could be helpful, for example. Thank you. Erica Haas, Southwest Riken Park Terrace. Dear members of the school board, I was horrified when I saw what transpired in the Newburgh School District these past few weeks. Banning gay pride flags and BLM flags is such a step backward to a dark, terrible past that we shouldn't be revisiting. We cannot allow this same regression to happen here in Sherwood. Students of all races, sexual orientation, and gender identity should feel supported and welcomed at school. We need to continue to be actively anti-racist, allowing new perspectives and ideas to be taught. The status quo no longer serves us. We need to evolve and grow so that students see themselves in what's being taught. The new diversity hire is a wonderful step in the right direction. We need to continue that march towards tolerance and equity. Every student deserves this. Thank you so much for your time.
Lynette Neal, Southwest Colfett Lane, Sherwood. What will happen to school openings if the COVID numbers continue to rise? How will you keep our children safe? Leanne Bennett, Southwest Parrot Mountain Road, Sherwood. The Delta variant of COVID-19 is extremely contagious and is hospitalizing children. Nearly 2,000 children are now being hospitalized in the U.S. with COVID-19. The Sherwood School Board must protect our families, their staff, and the community at large, or they should be held liable for healthcare costs and wrongful death. The board must follow the state guidelines and enforce masking, hand washing protocols, and distancing. Encourage vaccinations in eligible students and require all staff to be vaccinated. Please do not waste our tax dollars fighting lawsuits that could easily be prevented by following state and federal mandates on COVID safety. Particularly allow outdoor space for eating and distance learning for those uncomfortable with virus exposure. Luke Cohen's, Southwest Willow Drive, Sherwood. When I learned of the announcement that Sherwood School District would be enforcing the social distancing and cohorts in elementary levels, I thought, why? Doesn't the school board and superintendent know that we all play together outside of school without masks, without cohorts, and without 3 feet distancing? I am 9 years old and I go to Archer Glen, and I have played with at least half of the kids in the school all last year and this summer without masks and without distancing. I even played with kids from other schools in Sherwood. We have played on sports teams, at friends' houses, parties, in neighborhoods, and sleepovers. It is stupid to have cohorts and keep only grades together. Kids have brothers and sisters that they live with that are not in their grade and sometimes not even at their school. Keeping a cohort for 6 hours at school will do nothing when we all interact outside school without cohorts, without distancing, and without masks. The upper grade kids are role models for the younger grades in elementary. We can set an example to the younger grades, and this is why you had the buddy program in elementary levels. It is beyond important to have the different grades interact in school. Your grade cohorts will prevent this important development interaction. I want to be able to play with my friends at school, and this includes kids from other grades. I want to be able to give a friend a high five or fist bump to say hi. I want to be able to hug my friends if they are having a bad day. I want to be a kid, and to be a kid, you have to be able to get closer than 3 feet to people. Also, I want you to know that it is hard to breathe with a mask on all day. It is hot and sweaty. By the end of the day, it smells. Sometimes I get headaches and dizzy when I wear the mask too long at school. I think masks are making us sicker. During the half days of hybrid last spring, I would cry when my mom would remind me that I had to wear a mask at school. Having to wear a mask at school makes me very anxious, sad, and enclosed. It makes me sad to not be able to see my friends' faces and my teacher's face. I do not want to wear a mask at school. Make it optional. Please start thinking of our health as more than just COVID negative. These rules to prevent COVID are also preventing us from developing normally in our social and emotional health development. Please start to care for kids beyond COVID.
Julie Fairman, Sherwood. After 18 months of distance learning, my kids are very excited to go back in person. They've had the opportunity to be vaccinated. They don't mind wearing masks, and they're eager to get back to learning alongside their friends. But not every family is in the same boat. Some families have children not yet eligible for a vaccine. Some consider the requirement to wear a mask a deal breaker. The situation today is much different than most of us expected at the time we filled out the remote learning survey. 10% of Sherwood's entire case count of COVID since the start of the pandemic has been added in the past 2 weeks, 107 cases out of 1,097 total. This data was taken from OHA's weekly report as of 8/18/21. We're at the worst this pandemic has ever been. We need to have options. We need a distance learning option for those who choose not to send their kids in person. We need in-person learning for students and families who are willing to take the protective measures to reduce community spread. We also need a temporary distance learning option for the inevitable quarantines that will happen so those students don't fall behind. Thank you. Kendall Leeper, Houston Drive. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important in our schools because these kids are going to enter a world where they will work with, live next to, and encounter LGBTQ+, BIPOC, differently abled people in their adult lives. We should want to encourage acceptance and inclusion to create a better world for everyone. Many workplaces are now adopting DEI plans. It's becoming a part of our world more and more. If we don't encourage acceptance, it is likely the opposite will take its place. Understanding and welcoming those different from ourselves benefits everyone. Creating a space for everyone to feel accepted as they are is a lesson for all of us. If our kids can start learning that at an early age, just like they learn to read and spell, they will be better for it. Those who feel marginalized by feeling excluded and other should be able to learn in an environment of acceptance and inclusion. For those reasons and many more, our school system should embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. They will only better all out children and society as a whole.
Ian Cummings, Southwest Willow Drive, Sherwood. What is going on with our schools? It is like the school board, superintendent, teachers, and staff are trying to hurt kids' social and emotional health. Mask mandates, chemical sanitizers, and CRT. What next? Communism? I am a 7th grader at SMS, and I want you to know what kids like me have to say. It is hard to breathe in a mask all day, and sometimes I get dizzy from wearing it. They get sweaty and rub on your face, which can make you break out. I get severe anxiety and claustrophobic when I am forced to wear a mask at school. I am worried that my dirty mask will make me sick after wearing it at school all day, every day. In the hybrid days last spring, my mask was hot, moist, and dirty before the day was over. The moment we left school, almost every kid would rip their mask off so they could breathe. I miss seeing people's facial expressions like smiles. It is hard to understand teachers when they're talking through a mask. Before COVID, if we got sick at school with colds and flu, and it has never mattered even when we had that really bad flu year. We did not have to wear masks for that. Also, for youth to develop robust immune system, we need to be exposed to some germs and viruses. The excessive use of cleaning chemicals and hand sanitizers is concerning. Cleaners combined with masks is not allowing kids to be exposed to germs so that their immune system can develop. Furthermore, the classrooms smell like chemical cleaning sanitizers, and it gives us headaches and makes students and teachers feel sick. I am also concerned about the amount of hand sanitizer we are forced to use. Not only are my hands super dried out, but I am worried about the overexposure possibilities of alcohol poisoning due to all the hand sanitizer recalls. We do not know what the long-term effects of these chemical sanitizers will be on developing youth immune systems. About CRT, I think MLK said it best. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Pitting kids against each other by dividing them by race or any other category is just flat out wrong. Instead of focusing on equity and lowering standards for everyone, just like Governor Brown's removal of graduation standards, we should be focusing on increasing academic rigor in our schools. Maybe we should build students' character with integrity, not teach excuses, teach accountability, not blaming others, rigorous academic standards, not dumbing down of curriculum over the years, logic of thought, not what to think, and love, not divisive racial hate. This is one way we can honor MLK's legacy. Middle school is hard enough. Stop making it harder with masks, sanitizers, and teaching kids with CRT. Focus on developing the content of our character, academics, and our social, emotional, and physical health. Examine your hearts and ask yourself, school board and superintendent, are you really caring for kids? Is this a great place for all kids?
Ellison Worthy, Vintner Lane, Sherwood. With over 1,000 people across Oregon now hospitalized with COVID-19, the landscape for sending kids back to school has changed substantially in just the last 2 weeks. Now that kids, as well as young adults, are being hospitalized with COVID-19 Delta variant all over the country, we should consider how to keep this from happening in Sherwood. With today's count of 1,109 COVID cases here in Sherwood alone, it's likely that Sherwood schools could see some COVID cases in schools within a couple of weeks of in-person attendance, resulting in virus transmission and quarantines. There are many families who would appreciate an online option to avoid the virus, the quarantines, or in-school masking requirements. Sherwood schools successfully implemented the online cloud option last year, and although online school is not what we all want for our kids at this point, it would be a good idea for families to have the option to choose online participation until COVID Delta variant case counts have stopped rising. Please allow Sherwood families the option to choose online participation again, at least for the first trimester of the school year. Courtney Penberthy, Cobble Court. Dr. Cordy and directors of our Sherwood School Board. I'd like to thank the Sherwood School District for hiring the district's new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's my understanding that the district has been working on this idea for years, and I'm thankful as a member of this community with two K-12 kids in our district that the idea finally came to fruition. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of backlash on social media in regard to this hire, questioning the need for such a position. I'm bringing this up tonight not only to thank the district, but because I have reservations about all board members unanimously supporting this position as she gears up for school to start. With the recent directive to the superintendent of Newburgh School District that passed 4-3 by their school board to ban all BLM and pride flags, signs, apparels, buttons, etc., I'm concerned it will only fuel the fire here in our town of those who view these symbols as divisive. I've watched the school board meetings this last summer and listened to folks saying that our kids should be taught the basics at school and that the focus should be to prepare them for employment and graduation. I agree that math, science, and writing are basics, but so are accurate history, mental health and wellness, and learning about people from all walks of life, including those in the marginalized groups. Having a dedicated staff member whose job is to support all students, their families, and staff members, regardless of their background, sexual orientation, religion, gender identity, cultural, racial, or disability status, actually is beneficial to every single student. It is helping every single one of them to prepare for the workforce after graduation, as most companies now have DEI committees or directors on staff. This is standard nowadays, and by not encouraging our K-12 students to work together, learn about their differences, encourage kids to show up as their full authentic selves to school and feel good about it, we are not properly preparing them for life outside our homes. In any career, the best ideas always win. The only way to get to the best ideas is hiring a diverse workforce with different backgrounds, perspectives, and experience to bring to the table. It's no different at school. The community circles in the elementary schools, for example, are resulting in kids opening up to each other in a way they never have in past years. As for physical symbols of support, attention for marginalized groups, they should not be seen as divisive. They aren't taking away anything from other kids. All they're doing is acknowledging that certain groups like BIPOC and LGBTQ plus folks have a long history of struggle and are not universally accepted. These symbols are about inclusion, not exclusion. These kids may benefit from a DI director there to help them, but equally as important, the loud show of opposition proves that the rest of the kids will benefit from her as well.
Jill Kai, Southwest Friars Lane, Sherwood. Good evening, Board of Directors, and thank you for taking the time to listen to public comment with open ears and open minds. I've been hearing a lot of concern in these meetings lately about preconceived notions of critical race theory being taught in schools and about the hiring of a Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Personally, I am very excited about the hiring and can't wait to hear about the vision and plans for bringing new opportunities and welcoming experiences to Sherwood children. I don't understand how anyone wouldn't be excited about that. As far as critical race theory goes, there is an abundance of misinformation out there. First of all, nothing called critical race theory is or has ever been taught in Sherwood schools. It has been used as a political tactic to generate fear and outrage. People are outraged without ever seeing a single piece of curriculum. It is the mere concept that upsets them. I've even heard the comments from a couple of our board members. How can you judge something without ever seeing the full picture? Will you actually look at any curriculum about social injustice or equity and inclusion, or will you immediately write it off as CRT? I sincerely hope not. By listening to recent meetings, it is more clear than ever just how important it is that kids in school learn about and experience kindness and compassion, because it absolutely isn't demonstrated by some of the parents. Schools should be teaching about the social injustices and history that got us where we currently are. We have children in our school district who may deal with the impact of these injustices regularly, and it is so incredibly important that we make them feel heard, understood, cared about, and accepted. When we know better, we do better. Don't let the fear of the unknown or fear of uncomfortable conversations stop critical education in our schools. Don't let fear of disruption stop us from listening and being supportive. I am asking you to not make decisions based on hearsay, hyperbole, and fear-mongering. Please do your research. Thoroughly review any curriculum. If you have concerns, engage in conversation with school staff and students. Make sure you have a deep understanding of what you are looking at before jumping to decisions. Keep our schools a place where kids can receive education based on real history and events, not just the stuff that makes us feel comfortable and good about ourselves. Thank you.
Cassie Williams, Yorkshire Way, Sherwood. Dear Dr. Cordy, Chair Hecker, and fellow board members. First, I would like to thank all of you for the endless work you are doing for the students of Sherwood. Some of you are new to the board, while others have spent years giving of your time to the school board. I'm sure it is not an easy task, especially during this time in our country and world. I hope you will continue to work together to put our children's education, safety, and happiness first and foremost. Second, I would like to thank the district for making the decision to hire our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I know the director will work hard to support and help us all recognize the unique lived experiences of the students in our district. As a mother of a Black child in Sherwood, it has not always been easy to hear the stories my son has shared with me about incidents that have occurred as early as first grade. More important, though, these are experiences he should not have to endure. While we know our teachers are doing their very best, there is still much work to be done in educating others about racial and social justice issues. Our children can only grow and thrive when they all feel they are in a safe, loving environment, regardless of their race, sexuality, abilities, or gender. I hope we will continue to reinforce equity in the classroom and trust students to share and learn from what is happening in the world around them. I hope you will help to elevate the voices of those that so often are not heard. This is invaluable, and I hope you will support and encourage her work. Above all, I hope you will strive to bridge divides and ensure that every student feels welcome and a sense of belonging in our schools so they can reach their full potential. If you've not read the district's equity audit in detail, I encourage you to. It has some very personal statements from Sherwood students, staff, and families. Please help to make sure Sherwood schools remain a safe and welcome space for our children in our community. Thank you for your time. Samantha Brookshire, Southwest Dewey Drive, Sherwood. Sherwood School District should offer distance learning for the 2021-2022 school year due to Delta variant. Delta variant is killing children around the country, and while my child will be attending in-person classes due to her learning needs, parents should be able to choose, especially for families with medical issues and anti-vax, anti-mask families.
Sean Garland, Southwest Brook Court, Sherwood. Chair Hecker, Superintendent Cordy, and Sherwood School Board, thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. I would like to start off by welcoming our first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director for our Sherwood schools. This is a welcome and much needed step towards progress in Sherwood. On a similar note, I have seen the decisions made recently by the Newburgh School Board in banning Pride and Black Lives Matter flags from their schools. This is an unfortunate decision and one that shows a lack of inclusivity for all students. We have also seen citizen comments made at these Sherwood School Board meetings disparaging the teaching of inclusivity. Members of the public mocking transgender students and questioning the need for diversity education in our schools. Having attended the Justice for George Floyd rally in June 2020 and the Pride rally in June 2021, I have heard firsthand from our students the challenges that they face in our schools. There is clearly a problem with racism, discrimination, and prejudice in our schools. Young people who feel ostracized for living their true lives. Young people of color, the targets of hurtful verbal abuse and racist slurs. Banning displays will only further exacerbate those feelings of isolation and the discrimination that our students face on a daily basis. This is a hurtful measure that I hope is not supported by our Sherwood School Board. If parents and our school board are truly concerned about the mental health of our students, then our school board must welcome and encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion teaching into our curriculum. I implore each member of the Sherwood School Board not to follow Newburgh's lead. Please do not take any action that will further target our students. Thank you for your consideration. Jessica Cornwell, Southwest Forest Creek Drive, Sherwood. As a citizen of Sherwood, I would feel a lot better about the chaos of the school year beginning if the school board has a plan in place regarding quarantine procedures. Last year was nothing short of disastrous. Public safety is the most important thing here because if we continue in this vein, the Delta variant will have an easy foothold to spread through this community, transmitted by children too young to be vaccinated.
Susan Pfister, Bouchon Terrace, Sherwood. Good evening, Dr. Cordy and board. Like it is for many, my biggest concern at this time is for our children under the age of 12. The rush to get kids into school at all costs is careless and unnecessary. We're putting those most vulnerable among us into high-risk situations when we have a safe solution available. Please offer a remote option to those that would prefer one. We're so fortunate that our district has prioritized a one device per student initiative, which allowed remote learning to be live. Our experience of distance learning through the 2020-2021 school year was positive. Our second grader appreciated having a teacher and classmates to interact with and overall had a good experience. Our deepest hope is that the district will be able to offer an option again this year in whatever way possible as we await vaccines. Watch to see how the Delta variant and future variants will affect our hospitals and the world at large. Other concerns I share with our community is having an understanding of the district's plan for handling unmasked persons in school and for quarantine. Knowing how these events will be handled in as clear of terms as possible before the start of the school will be very helpful. As a community, let's think and act in terms of lives saved so we can look back on this time of sacrifice with pride. Steve Robertson, Stellar Drive, Sherwood. After Oregon removed the reading, writing, and math proficiency requirements for high school diploma, Governor Brown's communications director said it would benefit Oregon's Black, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, tribal, and students of color. What a disgraceful message to send to non-white kids and their parents. This is the racism of low expectation. It basically says, we don't think you're as capable as the white kids, so we're just get rid of the standards because we know it's just too hard. This is exactly what is wrong with the relentless push to make everything about equity in our schools. It is nothing more than a phony leveling of group outcomes by any means necessary, such as watering down or removing entirely standards based on merit. The education establishment seems to spend most of its time and resources on this DEI obsession, and our children's education is diminished as a result. Every discrepancy in group outcomes is chalked up to systemic racism, proving what a racist country we are. This is lazy and dangerous, but it's the CRT way of thinking. We're seeing excellence and rigor in academics rapidly give way to the woke ideologies of critical race theory, critical gender theory, and other critical social justice theories. These ideas not only degrade our kids' education, but they also bring unnecessary divisiveness, racial scapegoating, and conflict into our schools. And now we have a new DEI position, and it will probably be used to further accelerate the implementation of critical race theory and other critical social justice principles into school curricula and policies. Why else is this position even needed? Is the idea of treating people fairly, not discriminating, and valuing all races and cultures really that complicated? Parents across the country are waking up to this ideological takeover of our schools and are fed up with it. It's time for our school board to decide what its role is. Is it simply to administer every harebrained DEI idea that comes out of the Oregon Education Department, i.e. math is racist, don't you know? So here's our new equity in mathematics teacher's guide. Or is it to serve as our elected representatives and to make decisions that are in the best interest of our kids and the Sherwood community? Let's drop the political ideology, get back to basics, and give our kids the first-class education they deserve.
Jane Ham, Southwest Harvester Lane. I am concerned that we are not following last year's infection rate guideline. We are double what it was last year to open schools for in-person learning, and the current variant ripping our state apart is contagious amongst children. The governor gave us the autonomy to make local decisions so we have control, not so we would give into the clamorous minority. A distance of 3 feet is not enough to keep our kids from spreading COVID, and the idea that if they are wearing masks correctly, everyone is safe is a joke. How will we continue teaching with quarantine classrooms? Are we throwing teachers and administrators under the bus to stitch plans together in a crisis again? It's not just our students who need some sense of stability. Dr. Mike Osterholm, the epidemiologist who runs the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, has said, sending kids to school is just an invitation for this virus to transmit readily by, through, and with them. This is wrong. Crystal Olson, Cedar Brook Way. There needs to be a virtual option for our children. Delta is causing more issues with COVID than ever all over the country in schools that have already started. Children under 12 do not have the option to vaccinate at this time to keep themselves and others in their lives safe. Some of these children are high risk, and it's not fair to give them no other options when they can't even vaccinate yet. At least until second trimester, when they can hopefully all be vaccinated if wanted, there should be an option. And it needs to be made known sooner rather than later. All the surrounding districts are offering it. Why not ours? We moved here this summer for Sherwood schools, but we're incredibly disappointed given the lack of care for the health of the students and staff, given there is no option. Please rethink this. Thank you for your time. Michael Highland, Southwest Willamette Street, Sherwood. I want to thank the district for all the work you have done and continue to do to keep our kids safe during this pandemic. I know how hard you work on this, and I greatly admire the work that you do. I work at Providence. Our hospitals are at capacity now and are in crisis. They have asked salaried office workers to volunteer 1 day a week to work in the hospitals doing non-medical support tasks. I did my first shift yesterday, working in the emergency department, helping to clean rooms between patients. They have beds set up in the hallways to handle the overflow. They are seeing many COVID patients every day now, including children. The mask mandates are vital in getting this latest surge under control. Please mask up and get vaccinated. We do not want to fill up these beds with more children. I also want to thank the district for your work around equity. It is important for all of our students to feel welcome and accepted and build a learning environment where all can be inspired and thrive. One important aspect is the role models, authority figures, and successful people that students are presented with and study. Students notice when all of these look like them or if none of them do. This affects the biases and self-confidence that they will form. Equity is an important goal of public education in a democracy, and Sherwood must remain a place where we value all of our kids. Thank you.
Jennifer Peterson, Hamley Street, Sherwood. Currently, there is an increased awareness across the United States related to DEI and CRT, which is causing much consternation among school boards and parents nationwide. The challenge with this increased awareness is that with it comes much mis- or disinformation. Even though DEI and CRT are two distinct teachings, CRT has intentionally been turned into a political catch-all phrase to include anything related to DEI. This inaccurate and deliberate correlation was designed as a political scare tactic during the most recent presidential election cycle in an effort to sway voters. DEI is what schools are attempting to address, while CRT is not taught in K-12 curricula. CRT is not new. When CRT became sound bites taken out of context, it became the critical focus of our divided political state. However, actual critical race theory is a university-level concept originating 40 plus years ago when scholars began piecing together events and timeframes that led to inequities in post-emancipation United States. While this is an important topic for adults to grasp on a macro level to better understand our society as a whole, this is not what the Sherwood School District is attempting to teach our children through its DEI efforts. Let's be real and focus on the issue at hand. DEI is separate from CRT, and its initiatives are extremely important, common, and non-threatening. DEI does not have to be divisive. Diversity refers to representation based on myriad individual or group identities. Inclusion is the notion of welcoming all people. Equity is about removing barriers for the most vulnerable members of our society. How are these topics divisive? I believe if we peel back the onion, we might find that we have more in common than we think. DEI instruction can help us get closer to education's overarching goal, improving student learning and outcomes. Students benefit from seeing themselves mirrored in the front of the classroom, in the lab, and in the highest levels of academic leadership. Diverse representation and inclusion learning environments provide inspiration and aspiration and help students believe I can be there or I can achieve thought leadership in the profession I choose. Not only does increasing DEI give students the opportunity to visualize a successful future, it also exposes them to more ideas and information. Diversity of perspectives produces a more energized and dynamic academic environment. People with different life experiences ask different questions. They enrich dialogues and may ignite contestation or disruption of the status quo, which fuels the creation of new knowledge, innovation, and deeper understanding. Is that what we wish for all of our children? Beyond this, students need to be exposed to diverse points of view and life experiences to help prepare them to be a part of an increasingly diverse and interconnected world. DEI instruction helps to prepare our children for a life outside of Sherwood. I find it quite sad that well-intentioned people are being scared away from vital diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts because of widespread misinformation and intentional fear-mongering.
That's time. Lisa Brolette Hawkins, Southwest Hanley Street. Hello, you've likely all read my letters and requests for elementary schools to provide a cloud option, or at the very least, a detailed plan for the upcoming school year. As a parent in this community, many of us are very concerned about the lack of communication regarding another shutdown. I understand parents of older children do not have the same concerns as parents in our elementary schools. Sometimes it feels like those parents may be actually drowning out our voices. As we all know, the Delta variant is seriously affecting children. It is no longer a virus that almost exclusively chooses adults. Pediatric ICUs are filling up. Schools are closing up nationwide, and children are dying. Our littles obviously cannot be vaccinated, and feel more should be done to protect them. We were all hopeful things were getting back to normal. We've adjusted as a society. Let us not forget we are sending our youngest out into our schools to be brave and strong when we know so many young souls are scared. We have looked into homeschools, but they all lack the live full-day instruction most of our children need. Beaverton's and Tiger Tualatin District have both adopted virtual learning platforms. Our current guidelines sent out by district do not seem to be addressing the state and country's current situation. We plead with you to set the mass debate aside and to put the elementary school children's needs to the forefront.
Eric Blister, Bouchon Terrace. This week, Dr. Mike Osterholm, the epidemiologist who runs the University of Minnesota Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, issued a dire warning. Cloth masks and 3-foot distancing will not be enough to stop rampant spread of Delta through children at school. This variant is among the most contagious of airborne viruses, and it is putting kids in the hospitals at much higher rates. Oregon's pediatric intensive care units are already full, and we haven't even opened school yet. The decisions to open schools without comprehensive mitigations is pure malfeasance. Florida's pediatric COVID hospitalizations are up around 600% compared to previous variants. What do you think your claims of putting children first are going to look like in retrospect? Are you putting children first by actually reducing mitigations compared to last year. Sherwood's share of Washington County's pediatric hospitalization so far is 2. That was before Delta. Now what will it look like? Do you know that children often cough up blood when they're hospitalized with COVID? Do you know that even COVID cases with no respiratory symptoms measurably reduce IQ due to inflammation? Those that have to be intubated lose 7 IQ points on average, worse than the average stroke. That's what you're choosing for the Sherwood school or Sherwood children you say you are putting first. Here's what leaders that were actually putting children first and trying to keep schools open safely would be doing. First, you would provide and require N95 masks, which offer 25 hours of protection from an infectious dose, compared to a single hour with cloth masks. Second, if you were putting children first, you would measure and report the ventilation in every room, knowing that you need a minimum of 4 air changes per hour, while schools average only 1.5. Third, you would have supplemented with HEPA purifiers, shown to be one of the most effective inventions until you achieve at least 4 air changes per hour in every room. You could have put a purifier in every room by now for less than the salary of a single teacher. Fourth, if you were putting children first, you would have installed automatic toilet covers that prevent the flush-generated bioaerosol plumes that have been major documented vectors of both COVID and the original SARS. Fifth, if you were putting children first, you would not be planning to have kids eat in large communal settings. Sixth, if you were putting children first, you would be taking advantage of OHA's program for implementing a surveillance testing program, because you can't know if you have an outbreak without monitoring asymptomatic kids. Seventh, if you were putting children first, you would have planned quality remote instruction for quarantine kids and make anti-maker kids and kids that can't accept exposure risk. You failed our children in 7 different ways. Yes, these would cost some money, but they are very affordable within the millions of dollars of federal COVID aid our district received. If you were putting children first, you would report to the community exactly how you.
That's time. Megan Thornton, Southwest Woodhaven Drive, Sherwood. Dear school board members and Dr. Cordy, thank you for opening up the online public comment submission form again and for sincerely listening to the concerns of the families of school-age children. Our children are the future. We need to protect them regardless of the inconvenience it causes to ourselves. It saddens me that our community, as the country, is so divided on a subject that is literally intended to be a short-term suffering for the health and safety of everyone. Masks are inconvenient and nobody enjoys wearing them. That said, they're effective, definitely better than nothing in protecting ourselves, our family, our neighbors from a deadly virus. Wearing them appropriately is an integral daily step we can all take to reduce the spread and keep our community safe. While I know the governor has mandated masks, I'm still extremely concerned that the anti-mask contingent of our community is going to endanger our children. It's not the job of the administration and faculty to be enforcers. That said, I sincerely hope all SSD staff take the mandate seriously and help enforce the appropriate wearing of masks by all people, staff, students, volunteers, parents that enter a school. From attending the past 2 meetings, reading the information provided by the district, and talking with faculty, I understand that the current plan is to follow mask and physical distancing guidelines in the classroom, but abandon them for lunch. Children under the age of 12, unable to be vaccinated, will be herded into the cafeteria for lunch, unmasked, not physically distanced, to eat and drink together. This is asinine, extremely risky, and meets the distancing and masks required in the classroom. While we all want our children back in school full-time, this is an unnecessary risk. I beg you to reconsider this plan. I'm sure we can gather parent volunteers and staff to deliver lunches from the cafeteria to the classrooms for the safety of all the children. Lastly, please reconsider the cloud campus option given the explosion of the Delta variant. The science has shown that Delta is hurting our children and is much worse than the Alpha variant. Make cloud campus an option for elementary students only, since they're unable to receive a vaccine. If we can work together, citizens, school board, and district, we can make our Sherwood schools safe for our children and feel some sort of normalcy again.
Stacy Robertson, Stellar Drive, Sherwood. Parents are very aware of the radical ideologies being forced into our schools, curriculum, and onto our kids. School curriculum and policies are being purposely infused with race, activism, and critical social justice agendas. Kids are getting the message that these are the only approved and correct ideas and they should be accepted as truth. And kids know that they should not speak out against this way of thinking because they would risk being ostracized or accused of upholding white supremacy. Such is the nature of critical race theory and all other critical theory agendas. Dissent from any of the tenets is never allowed. Bringing ideology into our schools is unacceptable, and parents will continue to demand the removal of these race-based and gender-based agendas. These ideas are divisive and destructive and you continue to allow them to corrupt our schools and our kids. This issue will not go away. The school board and administration needs to commit to parents that will have complete access to all curriculum for all classes and for all grade levels. This includes all lessons plans, assignments, handouts, resources, materials, and websites. Everything the student sees, the parent must be able to see. It should be made easily accessible online, and this should be a priority for you as the new school year begins. If the board is unwilling to provide this, then it will be interpreted as intentionally keeping information away from parents for fear of public scrutiny. If something is publicly difficult or embarrassing to defend, then it should have never been brought into our schools in the first place. It's time to end the automatic acceptance of everything that comes out of our Oregon Department of Education. Some of the ideas on their websites are adamantly opposed by huge numbers of our citizens. Sherwood Public Schools cannot continue to ignore the parents who fund the schools and just implement everything the state recommends as if we're just extensions of the state apparatus. Otherwise, we may as well disband the board and bring in some woke Salem bureaucrats to administer our schools. Janet Bailey, Southwest 98th Avenue, Tualatin. Masks by Janet Bailey. You on this school board have decided that our kids should go to school every day wearing muzzles like rabid dogs. I have listened to your arguments and found that your arguments are lacking evidence, data, facts, and human decency. You've presented no valid facts at all. The truth is, COVID poses almost no risk at all to our kids. A total of 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID, and a total of 0.0008 of them have died. What about the flu? The CDC estimates that 480 kids died from the flu in the 2018-19 season. That's more than have died from COVID in a year and a half. Did anyone on this board suggest that any kids wear masks during the flu year? At any point, is the flu more dangerous to kids than COVID? And that's a fact. Now, do you know what it causes when you force your kids to wear masks for fear of a virus that poses almost no threat to them? It's called child abuse. If you think I'm kidding, how would you feel if someone forced his kid to wear a football helmet every day, all day, for fear of falling meteors or falling coconuts? Our kids are almost as likely to die from COVID as they are to die from a rock falling from the sky. Yet, if you saw that parent forcing his kid to wear a football helmet, you'd say that parent was abusive and is forcing his kid to participate in something that is utterly insane. You'd say that parent is delusional in order to satisfy their psychotic hypochondria. Now, do any of you realize the damage you do to children by forcing them to cover their faces, teaching them that the air is toxic and that everyone around them is sick? Have you considered the health damage it causes kids to force them to breathe wet, snotty, spit-soaked rags every single day? What about teaching a child to read when they can't see their teacher enunciating the words? What does it do to a child's immune system when he has to wear a mask all day, every day? Looks like you're willing to place this burden on children anyway. And why? It's certainly not to keep them safe. They are safe. It's not to keep adults safe. They can all go get vaccinated if they want. ORS 339288 flat out prohibits anything that puts pressure on a children's mouth and also prohibits the use of mechanical restraints on children's mouths that would make it hard for them to breathe. And the governor's mandate is absurd. Parents are fed up. We need to get our kids back in school without masks 5 days a week, full time.
Amy Miller Juve, Chapman Road, Sherwood. Thank you to those of you who voted to follow the state mask mandate. We greatly appreciate your commitment to the safety of our children, our educators, and our community at large. OHA has set up testing programs for asymptomatic screening using PCR tests and symptomatic exposure-based testing using rapid antigen test. Program linked here, hyperlink included. Several school districts such as Hillsborough and PPS have opted in to this additional screening and testing. If SSD has not yet opted in, we encourage you to do so. We will have a fourth grader and a senior in high school next year, and I would like the option to test my kids at home because while one is vaccinated, the other cannot yet be vaccinated. Regular screening is not only important for us at home, but also important for protecting other kids, their family, and our community. With our kids having increased exposure at school to COVID, having access to weekly screening tests for them will also help keep members of our community beyond Sherwood safe. If one of our kids tests positive, my husband, as a healthcare provider, will have to quarantine from work his patients until he can produce a negative COVID test. Our actions reverberate far beyond our city limits. Several organizations and experts have laid out well thought out plans for reopening schools. Those plans include universal masking, good ventilation, frequent hand washing, regular asymptomatic screening and symptomatic testing, and distancing when possible. We have the opportunity to add one more layer of protection to our kids, educators, and community by opting into the free testing and screening offered by our state. We need to take advantage of this opportunity to further protect those who cannot yet protect themselves. Thank you. Trina Hermanson, Southwest Sandhill Lane, Sherwood. I have twins who will be sophomores at the high school this fall. When we have talked about wearing masks indoors, they have stated they would much rather things be normal and have a regular high school experience. But we are in a pandemic and they want to wear the mask so they can be in school learning in front of their teachers. Please do everything possible to keep our students learning in person. Given the resignation earlier this month from the SHS Career Center, I'm interested in understanding the plan for properly staffing the Career Center and communicating such for the coming year. Fall is an especially critical time for seniors regarding career college planning. Is there a mitigation coverage strategy should a full-time replacement not be selected prior to the start of the school year? Thank you. Oh, John Urban, Southwest Redfern Drive.
Dan Edelstein, Scott Ridge Terrace. I'm submitting public comment as a citizen of the Sherwood community. Our family realized an excellent academic experience during our two children's experiences. They were able to leverage that high caliber instruction to gain world-class university admission. The Sherwood School District has an excellent reputation. Please cast votes that will help to maintain that reputation. Please adhere to OHA guidance regarding reducing COVID-19 risk in our schools and community. Please reject angry voices asking to antagonize marginalized groups within our community. Reject calls to emulate the votes of our neighbors, Newburgh, in regards to those groups' signage. Please help keep the reputation of Sherwood as a place to live and learn for all. Brian Yoshinaka, Fletcher Terrace, Sherwood. Dr. Cordy and district board members, I'm writing to applaud the district's hiring of our first director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is my sincere hope that this board, despite its recent shift in ideological and political bent, will receive guidance and input objectively and with the best interests of all students and families in mind. Every student in this district deserves an equal opportunity to learn and to feel safe and included. In some cases, this might mean providing additional outreach or resources to certain groups. These efforts shouldn't be viewed as threatening to other groups, but as attempts to create an environment where all students are on equal footing, where they feel safe and welcome. I struggle to understand why any parent would want anything other than this. Ignoring or marginalized students whose lifestyles you don't agree with or you don't share your beliefs won't make them disappear. Doing so will only make their experiences more difficult. And just because some of you haven't personally experienced prejudice or racism doesn't mean it doesn't exist in our schools. Discrimination, whether it's based on race, sexual orientation, social status, or religion, is everywhere. It's certainly not rampant here, but we aren't immune. I want my children to appreciate both the differences and the commonalities they have with their friends and classmates. I want them to understand there is strength in diversity and that it's not something to fear. I want them to learn about the sometimes painful history of this country as it grappled with inequity. I want them to feel safe and included. We are not starting from scratch here. Our experiences in this district have been overwhelmingly positive. I believe improving diversity, inclusion, and understanding will help strengthen our schools. And hiring the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is a great first step. I'm excited to see what she will do in her new role. In closing, I urge the board to resist the vocal minority that's trying to exert its influence over your decisions, whether related to diversity, mask wearing, or any other subjects. Don't think for a moment that they represent all of us or even most of us. The intimidation tactics some have been using in recent meetings and online are ridiculous and have left me feeling embarrassed for them. We as parents are our children's best and most important teachers, and it saddens me to think of the examples that parent conduct in recent meetings is sending to our children. You've been elected to lead and to do what is right for all the children in this district. This should be your top priority in every decision you make as a member of this board. I hope this is reflected in any upcoming actions you take.
And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Andre and Mr. Rose, for reading all those comments. And thank you to all of you that submitted public comment tonight. We appreciate it. And the board was certainly listening. So as we move on after public comment, we're going to go to the information and discussion portion of our meeting. This is in regard to a public complaint. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cordy to start.
Thank you, Chair Hecker. Board members, I am going to share with you the elements, the three main elements of a complaint that we received on Thursday, August 5th. It's a public complaint against the school board as a whole in accordance with public complaint procedure KL-AR1. Again, there are three basic elements of the complaint. The first one begins with acknowledging that the board passed a motion to support the governor's mask mandate, and then goes on to say that then decided that the mandate would be lifted and wouldn't adhere to the recommendations of the health agencies once local option is back in place. This the allegation is that this creates a public health hazard and violates the civil rights that kids have to a safe education. The allegation goes on that the board is ignoring both their insurance representative and legal counsel, who've informed them that both the district and board members personally are liable if for harm that results from their failure to abide by public health agency. The second element of the complaint notes that the board is aware that there are many community members planning to cause a coordinated attempt to force their unmasked children into school buildings when they open in violation of the current governor's order. The allegation is that the board ignored this alarm and did not consider the matter. The third and final element of the complaint against the board is that the board is failing to enforce strictly and uniformly its rules regarding the time limit on public comment and decorum in public meetings. That concludes the summary.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cordy. So I may be a little duplicitous in this, but I'm going to go ahead and cover exactly what our KL and KL-AR1 board policy states. And that is obviously public complaints are covered under those policies. And a complaint is considered a concern, problem, difficulty related to the district educational process filed with the district by an employee, student, or in this case, a member of the public. Complaints against the board as a whole or against an individual board members should be made to the board chair on behalf of the board. The board chair will present the complaint to the board, which is what we're doing now. And if the board decides an investigation is warranted, the board may refer the investigation to a third party. I am presenting the information regarding this complaint to the board. It was given to me on the same day by Superintendent Cordy. It is important to note that the source has not named themselves nor provided contact information. There is no required action of the board. This is strictly informational and to be acknowledged and or discussed in public. Again, the nature of the complaint includes the following. The first was the vote at the August 4th board meeting. And as far as that goes, that vote was that Sherwood families could have the ability to make their own decision to wear a mask or not to school at a time a mandate is lifted. As has always been the case during this pandemic, there is constant change in guidance, rules, regulations, and mandates. The complaint states health concerns, especially for students that are too young for vaccine, liability, and general fiduciary responsibilities, with an additional concern for students that do not wear masks. According to council, this is a very speculative complaint because it has not taken place yet. And as things change, vaccines become available, conditions change as well. The second concern related to safety of individuals or groups that attempt to violate public health policies or cause an unsafe situation is being addressed by the district. Dr. Cordy, did you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, thank you. So the complaint that the warnings of the community as it relates to the first days of schools and parents sending or guardians sending their students without masks and forcing them per the complaint to enter the buildings. We just want to be clear from staff management perspective that, you know, we have guidance from the state that will not allow us to have students in our classrooms with in-person instruction without masks. And so we are working on an online opportunity. I mentioned that in my superintendent report. Oregon virtual education is what it's referred to. So that will be an option. We are also working closely with Sherwood PD to ensure that there is a peaceful coming of parents and students on the first days of school. Thank you.
Thank you. So the final complaint related to public comment times and decorum during school board meetings. Again, this is an area that has already been acknowledged and addressed. Public comment is currently being submitted electronically with a hard stop at 3 minutes, and this will strictly be enforced. Decorum at school board meetings is also being addressed and has been addressed in both the short and long run. There has been initial coordination with local authorities to provide a safe atmosphere for all participants. We want everyone to feel welcome at our board meetings, including students in our district. Members of the community that cannot conduct themselves in a professional manner moving forward as we meet in person, hopefully again soon, will lose the opportunity to participate in those meetings and in public comment if they can't behave as such. As the board chair, it's been extremely difficult to limit the actions of others at times. These are difficult, very frustrating and painful times for many community members, and certainly not an easy situation for board members of the Sherwood School District and staff. We are doing our best under very difficult circumstances. As I mentioned earlier, there is no need for action or a vote regarding this complaint, but at this time, are there any comments from the board or additional discussion?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, it looks like there's no need for further discussion. So at this time, the complaint has now officially been shared with the board in accordance with KLAR 1. So with that being accomplished, we will move on to board reports. Board reports are the opportunity for all board members to share events they've attended or general information regarding the Sherwood education community. And we'll start with Director Nyangoro.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Director Adamson.
I just want to share some things I love about this time of year, and in a kind of positive end to a really great day. I love marching band practice and seeing all of the kids out on the field, learning how to march and play in unison in black and white for a couple of weeks on end. That just brings joy to my heart. I love Sherwood youth football car washes and thank the parents who did a really nice job of cleaning my van just outside the door here not long ago. And I love seeing youth in the community coming and knocking on my door and asking me to buy Bowman cards. We've bought several at this point, and I love the interaction, the opportunity to do that. I love to see our kids engaged in sports and activities and school. And I love how our community wraps their arms around these kids and supports them. And I really want to just take a moment to center that tonight, that we have a great community that loves these kids, that supports them. And I'm just looking forward to this fall and the opportunity to see more and more of that as we get underway.
Excellent. Director Thorne.
Yeah, we're right before the start of the school year. And I wanted to take a moment. I don't have anything long to say, but I want to take a moment and speak directly to our teachers and our administrators and our staff. You chose to be in this profession because you love kids and you love to teach. I know that despite all the things that are going on in the community right now, one thing that does unite us is that our love for our kids and that we want to see all of them succeed. I know that I'm not speaking for myself. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. When I say that, we hold a special kind of gratitude and appreciation for you. The fact that you have dedicated your life to educating our kids does not and will not ever go unrecognized. I look forward to getting to know each of you as or during my time on the board. It's an understatement when I say that the last year was extremely difficult on everybody. But you, teachers, staff, and administrators persevered and held strong for the sake of our kids. You are valued and appreciated far more than words can measure. Nobody can guarantee how this year is going to go, how difficult or undifficult it's going to be, but we do know that we're going to face challenges. And I just want to say that from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you and I recognize you. And we really miss you. And I'm excited for this new school year. That's it.
Excellent. Director Hawkins.
That was really nice. I would just share your guys' sentiment. I'm extremely excited to see the kids back in school. I know you guys are as well. My son got his middle school schedule yesterday, and just the excitement around what those classes might look like and who might be in them and who's teaching them. And I get a locker, that's so much excitement this year. And I'm thrilled to see them eager to get back. I know my kids didn't have the best experience. They did okay, but they didn't have the best experience with distance learning. So to see them really excited to learn and be back in school is so warming to me. And so, yeah, I'm just super excited for us to get started. And I hope we get to do that soon.
Okay, thank you. And I want to just add on to everything you guys have said, which is fantastic. It was really nice to be at the chamber breakfast Friday. It felt so normal, and it's been so long, and to be able to show off the high school and have community members that don't necessarily have students in our buildings see that facility and just get excited about it was really spectacular. So long overdue, and thank heavens, we could do it. So it was great. I can't wait to get stuck behind a school bus. It's been too long. I didn't think I'd miss something like that, but I'm really excited for them to be picking up kids and to have to wait and to watch that and the excitement. And I can't wait to be at some of these first days. And just know that these kids just need to get back and it's just going to be fantastic. And I really look forward to the school year. I also want to take the time to thank everyone in the room, the other 9 people, for spending an entire afternoon and being really candid and open with responses. And as part of this team, I'm really excited to do the work that's in front of us on behalf of the kids in this community. So thank you all. So I appreciate it. With that, if there's nothing more for the good of the order, the next meeting of the board will be on September 15th. So we will see you then. We're adjourned.